All right, so where we last ended, we were in chapter 17. PETA and Katniss both just made a scene during their private viewing. Haymitch is mad at them. He says, go to bed. I can't stand to look at either one of you. PETA walks me down to my room in silence, but before he can say goodnight, I wrap my arms around him and rest my head against his chest. His hands slide up my back and his cheek leans against my hair. I'm sorry if I made things worse, I say. No worse than I did. Why did you do it anyway? He says. I don't know. To show them that I'm more than just a piece in their games, I say. He laughs a little, no doubt remembering that night before the games last year. We were on the roof, neither of us able to sleep. PETA had said something of the sort then, but I hadn't understood what he meant. Now I do. Me too, he tells me. And I'm not saying I'm not going to try. To get you home, I mean. But if you're perfectly honest about it, you think President Snow has probably given them direct orders to make sure that we die in the arena anyway, I say. It's crossed my mind, says PETA. It's crossed my mind too, repeatedly. But while I know that I'll never leave that arena alive, I'm still holding on to the hope that PETA will. After all, he didn't pull out those berries. I did. No one has ever doubted that PETA's defiance was motivated by love. So maybe President Snow will prefer keeping him alive, crushed and heartbroken, as a living warning to the others. But even if that happens, everyone will know we've gone out fighting, right? PETA asks. Everyone will, I reply. And for the first time, I distance myself from the personal tragedy that has consumed me since they announced the quell. I remember the old man they shot in District 11, and Bonnie and Twill, and the rumored uprisings. Yes, everyone in the districts will be watching me to see how I handle this death sentence, this final act of President Snow's dominance. They'll be looking for some sign that their battles have not been in vain. If I can make it clear that I'm still defying the Capitol right up to the end, the Capitol will have killed me, but not my spirit. What better way to give hope to the rebels? The beauty of this idea is that my decision to keep PETA alive at the expense of my own life is in itself an act of defiance, a refusal to play the Hunger Games by the Capitol's rules. My private agenda dovetails completely with my public one, and if I really could save PETA, in terms of a revolution, this would be ideal, because I will be more valuable dead. They can turn me into some kind of martyr for the cause and paint my face on banners, and it will do more to rally people than anything I could do if I were living. But PETA would be more valuable alive, and tragic, because he will be able to turn his pain into words that will transform people. PETA would lose it if he knew I was thinking any of this, so I only say, so what should we do with our last few days? I just want to spend every possible minute of the rest of my life with you, PETA replies. Come on then, I say, pulling him into my room. It feels like such a luxury, sleeping with PETA again. I didn't realize until now how starved I've been for human closeness, for the feel of him beside me in the darkness. I wish I hadn't wasted the last couple of nights shutting him out. I sink down into sleep, enveloped in his warmth, and when I open my eyes again, daylight streaming through the windows. No nightmares? He says. No nightmares, I confirm. You? None. I've forgotten what a real night's sleep feels like, he says. We lie there for a while, in no rush to begin the day. Tomorrow night will be the televised interview, so today Effie and Haymitch should be coaching us. More high heels and sarcastic comments, I think. But then the red-headed Avox girl comes in with a note from Effie saying that given our recent tour, both she and Haymitch have agreed that we can handle ourselves adequately in public. The coaching sessions have been canceled. Really? Says PETA, taking the note from my hand and examining it. Do you know what this means? We'll have the whole day to ourselves. It's too bad we can't go somewhere, I say wistfully. Who says we can't? He asks. The roof. We order a bunch of food, grab some blankets, and head up to the roof for a picnic. A day-long picnic in the flower garden that tinkles with the wind chimes. We eat. We lie in the sun. I snap off hanging vines and use my newfound knowledge from training to practice knots and weave nets. PETA sketches me. We make up a game with the force field that surrounds the roof. One of us throws an apple into it, and the other person has to catch it. No one bothers us. By late afternoon, I lie with my head on PETA's lap, making a crown of flowers while he fiddles with my hair, claiming he's practicing his knots. After a while, his hands go still. What? I ask. I wish I could freeze this moment, right here, right now, and live in it forever, he says. Usually that sort of comment, the kind that hints of his undying love for me, makes me feel guilty and awful. But I feel so warm and relaxed and beyond worrying about a future I'll never have, I just let the words slip out. Okay. I can hear the smile in his voice. Then you'll allow it. I'll allow it, I say. His fingers go back to my hair and I doze off, but he rouses me to see the sunset. It's a spectacular yellow and orange blaze behind the skyline of the Capitol. I didn't think you'd want to miss this, he says. Thanks, I say, because I can count on my fingers the number of sunsets I have left, and I don't want to miss any of them. We don't go and join the others for dinner, and no one summons us. I'm glad. I'm tired of making everyone around me miserable, says Peta, everybody crying, or hey, Mitch. He doesn't need to go on. We stay on the roof until bedtime and then quietly slip down to my room without encountering anyone. The next morning we're roused by my prep team. The sight of Peta and me sleeping together is too much for Octavia because she burst into tears right away. You remember what Cinna told us, Vina says fiercely. Octavia nods and goes out sobbing. Peta has to return to his room for prep, and I am left alone with Vina and Flavius. The usual chatter has been suspended. In fact, there's little talk at all, other than to have me raise my chin or comment on a makeup technique. It's nearly lunch when I feel something dripping on my shoulder and turn to find Flavius, who's snipping away at my hair with silent tears running down his face. Vina gives him a look, and he gently sets the scissors on the table and leaves. Then it's just Vina, whose skin is so pale her tattoos appear to be leaping off of it. Almost rigid with determination, she does my hair and my nails and my makeup, fingers flying swiftly to compensate for her absent teammates. The whole time she avoids my gaze. It's only when Cinna shows up to approve me and dismiss her that she takes my hands, looks me straight in the eye, and says, We would all like you to know what a privilege it has been to make you look your best. Then she hastens from the room. My prep team. My foolish, shallow, affectionate pets, with their obsessions with feathers and parties, nearly break my heart with their goodbye. It's certain from Venus' last words that we all know I won't be returning. Does the whole world know it, I wonder? I look at Cinna. He knows, certainly. But as he promised, there's no danger of tears from him. So what am I wearing tonight? I ask, eyeing the garment bag that holds my dress. President Snow put the dress in order himself, says Cinna. He unzips the bag, revealing one of the wedding dresses I wore for the photo shoot. Heavy white silk with a low neckline and a tight waist that leaves the fall from my wrist and sleeves that fall from my wrist to the floor. And pearls. Everywhere pearls. Stitched into the dress and in ropes around my throat that form a crown for the veil. Even though they announced at the quarter quell the night of the photo shoot, people still voted for their favorite dress. And this was the winner. The president says you're to wear it tonight. Our objections were ignored. I rub a bit of the silk between my fingers, trying to figure out President Snow's reasoning. I suppose since I was the greatest offender, my pain and loss and humiliation should be in the brightest spotlight. This, he thinks, will make that clear. It's so barbaric, the president turning my bridal gown into my shroud, that the blow strikes home, leaving me with a dull ache inside. Well, it'd be a shame to waste such a pretty dress, is all I say. Cinna helps me carefully into the gown, and it settles on my shoulders. They can't help giving a shrug of complaint. Was it always this heavy? I ask. I remember several of the dresses being dense, but this one feels like it weighs a ton. I had to make some slight alterations because of the lighting, says Cinna. I nod, but I can't see what that has to do with anything. He decks me out in the shoes and the pearl jewelry and the veil, touches my makeup, has me walk. You're ravishing, he says. Now, Katniss, because this bodice is so fitted, I don't want you raising your arms above your head. Well, not until you twirl, anyway. Will I be twirling again? I ask, thinking of my dress last year. I'm sure Caesar will ask you. If he doesn't, you suggest it yourself. Only not right away. Save it for your big finale, Cinna instructs me. You give me a signal so that I know when, I say. All right. Any plans for your interview? I know Haymitch left the two of you to your own devices, he says. Nope. This year I'm just winging it. The funny thing is, I'm not nervous at all. And I'm not. However much President Snow may hate me, this Capitol audience is mine. We meet up with Effie, Haymitch, Portia, and Peta at the elevator. Peta's in an elegant tuxedo and white gloves, the sort of things grooms wear to get married in, here in the Capitol. Back home, everything is so much simpler. A woman usually rents a white dress that's been worn hundreds of times. The man wears something clean that's not mining clothes. They fill out some forms at the Justice Building and are assigned a house. Family and friends gather for a meal or a bit of cake, if it can be afforded. Even if it can't, there's always a traditional song we sing as the new couple crosses the threshold of their home. And we have our own little ceremony where they make their first fire, toast a bit of bread, and share it. Maybe it's old fashioned, but no one really feels married in District 12 until after the toasting. The other tributes have already gathered off stage and are talking softly, but when Peta and I arrive, they fall silent. I realize everyone is staring daggers at my wedding dress. Are they jealous of its beauty? The power it might have to manipulate the crowd? Finally, Finnick says, "I can't believe Cinna put you in that thing." He didn't have a choice. President Snow made him, I say, somewhat defensively. I won't let anyone criticize Cinna. Cashmere tosses her flowing blonde curls back and spits out, "Well, you look ridiculous." She grabs her brother's hand and pulls him into a place to lead our procession onto the stage. The other tributes begin to line up as well. I'm confused because, while they are all angry, some are giving us sympathetic pats on the shoulder, and Johanna Mason actually stops to straighten my pearl necklace. "Make him pay for it, okay?" she says. I nod, but I don't know what she means. Not until we're all sitting on stage and Caesar Flickerman, hair and face highlighted in lavender this year, has done his opening spiel and the tributes begin their interviews. This is the first time I realize the depth of the betrayal felt among the victors and the rage that accompanies it. But they are so smart, so wonderfully smart about how they play it, because it all comes back to reflect on the government and President Snow in particular. Not everyone. There are the old throwbacks, like Brutus and Inorbria, who are just here for another games, and those too baffled or drugged or lost to join in on the attack. But there are enough victors who still have the wits and nerve to come out fighting. Cashmere starts the ball rolling with a speech about how she just can't stop crying when she thinks about how much the people in the capital must be suffering because they will lose us. Gloss recalls the kindness shown here to him and his sisters. BT questions the legality of the quell in his nervous, twitchy way, wondering if it's been fully examined by the experts of late. Finnick recites a poem he wrote about his one true love in the capital, and about 100 people faint because they're sure he means them. By the time Johanna Mason gets up, she's asking if something can't be done about the situation. Surely the creators of the Quarter Quell never anticipated such love forming between the victors and the capital. No one could be so cruel as to ever sever such a deep bond. Cedar quietly ruminates about how back in District 11, everyone assumes President Snow is all-powerful. So if he's all-powerful, why doesn't he change the quell? And Chaff, who comes right on her heels, insists the president should change the quell if he could change the quell if he wanted to, but he must not think it matters much to anyone. By the time by the time I'm introduced, the audience is an absolute wreck. People have been weeping and collapsing and even calling for change. The sight of me in my white silk bridal gown practically causes a riot. No more me, no more star-crossed lovers living happily ever after, no more wedding. I can see even Caesar's professionalism showing some cracks as he tries to quiet them so I can speak, but my 3 minutes are ticking quietly away. Finally there's a lull and he gets out. "So Katniss, obviously this is a very emotional night for everyone. Is there anything you would like to say?" My voice trembles as I speak. "Only that I'm so sorry that you won't get to be at my wedding. But I'm glad that you at least get to see my dress. Isn't it just the most beautiful thing?" I don't have to look at Cinna for a signal. I know this is the right time. I begin to twirl slowly, raising the sleeves of my heavy gown above my head. When I hear the screams of the crowd, I think it's because I must look stunning. Then I notice something is rising up around me. Smoke. From fire. Not the flickery stuff I wore last year in the chariot, but something much more real that devours my dress. I begin to panic as the smoke thickens. Charred bits of black silk twirl into the air, and pearls clatter to the stage. Somehow I'm afraid to stop because my flesh doesn't seem to be burning, and I know Cinna must be behind whatever is happening. So I keep spinning and spinning. For a split second I'm gasping, completely engulfed in strange flames. Then all at once, the fire is gone. I slowly come to a stop, wondering if I'm naked and why Cinna has arranged to burn away my wedding dress. But I'm not naked. I'm in a dress of exactly the same design as my wedding dress, only it's the color of coal and made of tiny feathers. Wonderingly, I lift my long, flowing sleeves into the air, and that's when I see myself on the television screen, clothed in black except for the white patches on my sleeves, or should I say my wings, because Cinna has turned me into a mockingjay.